Welcome to HK3 News. This interview is part of our startup format where we introduce startup leaders, give them a platform to review their project, and let you, the viewer, know how you can support and/or participate in their project. If you are a startup leader yourself and you're looking for exposure, then you can find us at HK3.News or CryptoChainHub.com and click the advertising link at the top. And now on to the interview. Get into the introductions and get moving. So my name is Mark Kreitzman. I am the host for today's interview on HK3. And Shui, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself as well as the relevant background for the project that you're running.
Well, good day. Certainly thank you, Mark, for having me. My name is Shui Mitchell. I am a film producer, director, living here on the East Coast. And I'm very happy to be here.
All right, great to have you on. So you're not only a filmmaker in the sense of this isn't your first time, correct? So you've actually
That's correct.
So you've actually already produced a couple of independent videos or independent movies, I should say.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've been in the business about 30 years, actually. I studied film and television production at Howard University. Studied under an esteemed faculty, where I got the bug, if you will, to get into this industry of ours. I produced over 4 feature-length films throughout my career. One of them started out with a documentary film that was a PBS documentary film entitled Straight Up Go-Go. It's a music documentary on the history and culture of Washington, D.C.'s phenomenon called go-go music. It's been around about 30, 40 years. So that film did pretty well. It aired on PBS and had a nice run. It was distributed internationally by a company by the name of ATA Trading Corp. From there, I followed up, did a number of music videos and number of commercials, those kind of things, and ended up with a feature film that we produced in 2007, the title of To Save. It's a faith-based romantic comedy. And that film we did very low budget, shot it in 2.5 days, believe it or not, an entire feature film in 2.5 days. And that film went on to do pretty well on the festival circuit because of its success. It won numerous awards, including the Dove Family Approved Award, won several best films at several film festivals, and it was later required for distribution by Maverick Entertainment Group, Inc., which distributed it internationally. And it also had some broadcasting success as well. Due to that success, we were able to follow up with a film that we recently released in 2014. The title is Nocturnal Agony. That's the movie poster you see behind me. It stars Lawrence Hilton Jacobs, mostly known from Cooley High, as well as Welcome Back Kotter, along with John Travolta and that great cast from the 1970s. He stars along with Renee Watson, who is better known as the mother of Will Smith on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. She's done numerous films and television shows as well, along with Raven Laurie Moore Kelly, a former child actress who is now obviously an adult, doing very well, and Hezekiah Walker, the gospel recording artist, Grammy Award-winning recording artist, shall I say, and his film debut. So that film did well as well, and was distributed also by Maverick Entertainment, and was released. You can find it in Redbox, Walmart, Hulu. In fact, it's one of the highest rated films on Amazon Prime at the moment, getting about a 4.5 rating out of 5 stars. So we're excited about that. And as you know, we're on to our new project now, which is a documentary film entitled The Game That Changed College Basketball, which certainly we'll talk more about, I'm sure, later in this discussion.
Yeah, well, that's incredible experience. So you're going to take 30 years of experience in this business. You're now going to apply it to this project that you're crowdfunding for. So the project's called The Game That Changed College Basketball. Before we get into the actual game, let's sort of set things up in terms of what was going on at this time. So we're going to talk about a game that's in 1974. UCLA was on a 7-year run, winning the national championship. UCLA had around a 3-year run in terms of being undefeated until Notre Dame took them out in 1974 in one of the games. Well, we might as well talk about the fact that Maryland lost to UCLA by 1 point and NC State lost to UCLA by 20. Like, this was incredible history. This is a time when you couldn't even dunk. And where the alley-oop was sort of, came from David Thompson. So why don't you go ahead and maybe fill in if I've missed a couple gaps in terms of setting it up, and then go right into what this project is about.
Well, you didn't miss much, Mark. You're really right on point. You're a historian of the game yourself, and it's good to talk to you about this game. Just as you mentioned, the significance was that in 1974, the ACC had a tremendous year. It was one of the few conferences that had 5 teams that were never out of the top 10 in the country that entire year. NC State was number 1 in the country. Maryland was between 5 and 6 and third in the country the entire time. North Carolina had the great Phil Ford on that team as well. They were ranked in the top 10. And then later on, Clemson also with the Tree Rollins, his team, were also ranked. Tremendous year for ACC. And so coming into this game, as you mentioned, Maryland ended up opening the season against UCLA in Pauley Pavilion, may I add, at UCLA, and ended up losing by 1 point on a controversial call in the last seconds of the game. Many say that they really won that game, but playing on the road, first game of the season, they ended up losing that game, as I stated on the call. So they really were excited about their chance. They went through the entire ACC, which was a very difficult schedule, only losing to NC State. 2 close games. Both games went down to the wire, and they lost to that great team which starred David Thompson, and Tom Burleson, Monty Tao. And so we come into the ACC championship game. Maryland is ranked number 4 in the country. NC State is ranked number 1. They both make it to the finals of the championship game. And the interesting thing about it is that this game goes into overtime. It ends up being a 103-100 win by NC State. NC State goes on to win the national championship, as you mentioned, yet Maryland goes nowhere. Now, mind you, in today's game, that's preposterous. Why would the number 4 team in the country not make the NCAA tournament? Well, I don't know if we're going to get into that later, but as it stated, that's what makes this story so interesting. It's a little known fact that Maryland did not go to the tournament, and there's a reason behind that. And I guess we'll elaborate on that later.
So let's make sure the viewers understand this, because I didn't until I went back in history and actually was prepping to do this interview for you. So at this time, in 1974, you had to win the tournament in order to move into the NCAA. So you could be the second, the number 1, the third ranked. If you lose, if you do not win your tournament, you're out, correct?
That's correct. In those days, the NCAA had a rule that any conference that had a conference championship, or any conference at all, had to determine their conference champions. So only conference champions could represent that conference in the NCAA tournament. Now, if you were independent like Notre Dame, you didn't have that issue. So it's just a matter of how well you had, in terms of your season, how well you were ranked. Then, of course, you would get a bid to the NCAA tournament. So teams like Marquette, or schools like Marquette, Notre Dame, those days, they didn't have to worry about the conference issue. But schools like UCLA, NC State, Maryland, down in the Southeastern Conference, etc., it depended on how your conference determined its champion. And so in the case of Maryland and NC State, ACC determined their champion by conference championship at the end of the year. And so this game was all. The winner take all. Winner, loser, go home. And that's exactly what happened. Maryland ended up losing that game, and it was a fantastic game. It was played with such precision. As I stated earlier, NC State won the game 103-100, and the game went into overtime. And mind you, this game was played with such fast-paced precision, as I stated, that there was not one turnover in the entire regulation. So if you can imagine a game that they scored 100 points, but yet there was no turnovers, It was one turnover in overtime, and that turnover was committed by John Lucas, the great All-American and NBA pro guard. He turned the ball over, and ended up NC State got the turnover, ended up winning that game, as I stated, 103-100. NC State goes on to win the national championship. They beat the great Bill Walton led team, UCLA, in the semifinals. Went on to beat Marquette in the national championship. Maryland ended up going nowhere because of this game. They had won the NIT tournament the year before, felt they had nothing else to prove. The group, senior-led team by Len Elmore, Tom McMillan, those guys, I felt they had done enough to prove themselves. Nothing more they wanted to do that was worth their career. And they went on. They told me later, went on and started spring break, and decided to end their careers, unfortunately, with a loss to NC State.
Yeah, when I was prepping for this, I was reading about the game, the NC State versus Maryland game, and even though it was in North Carolina, what I read was that they got a standing ovation. So Maryland and NC State, the game was played so perfectly. It was such awesome basketball that they gave both teams a standing ovation. Now, the only film that I could find on it, in the end, you actually lose the sound. So you couldn't, in the last 5 to 8 minutes. So I couldn't hear that for myself, but it's my understanding that it was incredible to be there.
Well, John Feinstein, as well as Billy Packer, I believe, called it the greatest college basketball game ever played. It was widely considered the greatest college basketball game until Kentucky beat Duke, or Duke beat Kentucky, shall I say, in the famous Christian Laettner game, where he hits the shot, wins the game, and beats Kentucky, and they call that concurrently the greatest college basketball game ever played. Prior to that, though, this game here, the 1974 ACC championship game, was widely considered by most critics and most sports writers as the greatest college basketball game ever played. On the court that day, there were such great talent with 8 future NBA ball players who played in that game. 8 All-American ball players, 5 future NBA ball players, and 2 many consider should be in the Hall of Fame, the great David Thompson, and of course John Lucas, many say should be in the Basketball Hall of Fame. Also, there was a Hall of Fame coach now that was coaching Maryland, Coach Lefty Driesell, who's also in our film and talks about his experiences in that game. And so he also coached that game. It's an incredible game, and it should be given its proper due, if you will, among college basketball games in history.
Yeah, that year certainly was a big part of history for college basketball. And I remember watching Bill Walton interviewed a couple of years ago, and I don't remember the question. It must have been something around, do you have any regrets of your career? And he still to this day sees about 1974 and the impact that had on his life. And so it was a great year for basketball. So you're going to do a crowdfunding campaign. And so let's talk about, what are the challenges of creating this documentary and the reasons behind doing the crowdfunding?
Well, the challenges in all film, we as filmmakers are constantly seeking capital, seeking financing to finish our projects or to even complete or begin our projects. The good thing about this project here is that we're about 90% complete with principal photography. We only have a few more interviews to shoot. We have interviews lined up that have already been scheduled with the great David Thompson and all of the other NC State players. There are a couple of coaches that we want to interview to add to it, and the rest will be just a few B-roll and, of course, editing the film. CBS Sports Network has already agreed to air the film upon its completion, so we just need to get the film completed. And so that's why we chose a platform such as this to possibly do that. As a filmmaker, I've been a little leery of the crowdfunding phenomenon, if you will. I've never really approached raising funds this way. We have usually raised our funds through private equity financing, through individual investors. And we saw this platform, though, because this is a film that I think really resonates with the public, as well as those who are sports fans and aficionados who just love sports or love college basketball. I think this allows them an opportunity to participate and actually become producers along with us and ride along this great journey that we have now started. And so the greatest challenge, quite frankly, is getting the funding or getting to the right people that are decision makers to make this thing come to fruition, bring it to fruition, Charles.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of the things that interests me about your project, is because I believe crowdfunding for independent producers and filmmakers such as yourself is going to really be the new thing. Because I got to imagine, I don't have any experience in doing independent films, but if you've got the budget, you can get the named actors, right?
Absolutely.
So you could have the greatest story. If you have no budget, then you can't get the names. If you get the names, you get their following. It's easier to market. So it's one of the reasons why I was really interested in participating with you and helping promote this. So you're going to crowdfund on a platform called Razitall, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we're actually put the link below. So for anyone who's interested in owning a piece of history, so I'm going to put a bid on it myself because I'm into college basketball. I love that time in history. So I'm going to bid myself. And we want you to go and bid. So go to the link down below, register, search for the project called The Game That Changed College Basketball. It's very easy. You then put in your credit card. In most projects, you can bid for under, say, $50 or $60, and you get to not only support a project that's going to create history or document history, but you can own a little piece of it and be part of it. So I love the ESPN classics for college and the NBA, and so now I can be a part of it. So anything else that the viewers would want to know in terms of what you're attempting to do and why they might want to be involved or anything?
Well, generally, I think you stated it all, Mark. I think the main thing is that this is not just a one-off. We will be doing, if we are successful, and we will be with this project, many more projects that we will be bringing to the table. And I think that you'd be an opportunity to join this movement, if you will, of what we've been doing for over 30 years, quite frankly. And we have many more great ideas that we're going to be bringing to the table. So this is kind of an experiment, as I stated, that to see just how well this resonates with audiences and how they respond to the crowdfunding platform, if you will, in terms of investment, capital, raising capital for film. So I think that this will be an opportunity for many, many people to come on board. And usually it's exclusive to wealthy investors or investors who maybe have relationships with the filmmakers. This is an opportunity for someone maybe in Dubai, if you will, who I've never met, someone in California, all around the country to become a part of this movement to get this great film produced and onto the screen.
All right.
So we thank you for your support in advance.
Yeah, great. So, unfortunately, you can't edit so Maryland wins and change the history. But for the future, it's my understanding, and if I saw this correctly, do you have some family members going to Maryland next year?
I do not, personally.
Okay.
My son is actually he's a college basketball player himself. He is going to another school.
Okay.
Recruited by Maryland.
Okay.
But he's actually going to he's transferring to a junior college, left the University of Charleston this year, a freshman, and going to a junior college. And you never know, maybe he will be going to Maryland after he finishes his 1 year of junior college. But again, we should support all of college basketball and whoever your favorite team is. Support it. I think that all those who are fans and enjoy how college basketball came to be would love this film. Little did we know that March Madness and all things we love about Selection Sunday started after this game, because the next year after NC State beat Maryland, NCAA changed the rule and they ushered in the first at-large bids that we now know of as Selection Sunday. All this happened in 1975, 1 year after the great Maryland NC State game in the 1974 championship game. that we love, know and well, know and love now, shall I say.
All right, great. Well, it was a privilege having you on. I love what you're trying to do. I support your project, and we wish you the biggest success here at HK3. I think we'll go ahead and close it out here, and maybe we'll challenge the production manager here to see if he can put a little clip at the end here live. But it may work, it may not. But thanks a lot for having us on or coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mark, to you and your audience. Thank you for having me.
That game is the game that changed the Final Four.
The University of Maryland's appearing in its third consecutive ACC championship game.
Here you have two teams in the top four in the nation. One of them was going home.
The rules were you had to win the postseason tournament to go to NCAA.
I think it was great players, great play, and what was at stake, because only one team was advancing.
North Carolina State University, they have one of the truly great players in the history of this league in David Thompson.
David Thompson was a better college player than Michael Jordan.
Who was really my height, but played so far above the rim.
And we just couldn't match up with him.
David Thompson, watch him along the baseline in the far corner.
I have to say, unequivocally, absolutely the most fabulously, almost flawless basketball game I ever played in.
One of the greatest games of all time.
Losses don't get tougher than that.
I think if we'd have won that game, we'd have had a chance to win the national championship.
And as a seminal game, it ended up changing the rules of college basketball.
The impact that we've had was they broadened the field and they changed the rule. We made history.
Billy Packer says the greatest game ever played.